Welcome to Trust Talks with BBB Serving CT. I'm Kristen Johnson. In business, trust talks, and Better Business Bureau's mission is to enhance marketplace trust. In each one of our episodes, we hope to give you a better idea of what to expect, what to look for, and what to look out for, so you can spend your money wisely and avoid being scammed. The education of our children and our grandchildren is a top priority. As caregivers, we want to ensure that they have the tools they need to succeed academically and thrive in life. But what happens when the standard classroom setting isn't enough to meet their unique needs? Where do you turn if your child needs extra help or to keep up and push ahead? Well, today, Kat Calhoun with Able to Learn joins us to talk about preventing brain drain over the summer months, preparing for those all-important end-of-the-year tests, and helping your student go to the head of the class throughout the school year. Kat, thanks so much for being with us. Tell me about your company, Able to Learn, out of New Haven County.
Thank you, Kristen. It's a pleasure to be here. And after retiring from engineering, I got back into education and felt there was a big need, especially in math, because I came from engineering. But over the years, I tutored and loved doing that. And then I started training tutors and loved doing that. And the tutors could get the same results that I could get. And so the business name was surveyed among my students at that time. I wanted something that would show up in the old Yellow Pages printed phone book, like starting with an A, but A+ and others were already gone. But Able to Learn was what came out of the survey from my parents and students. And that really signifies what I want to do, whether I'm helping the student, the teacher, the tutor, the parent. I want to empower people to be able to learn.
You mentioned that you were an engineer, but you started as a math teacher, correct?
That's true. My teaching credential is secondary math.
And what got you back into tutoring after you left engineering?
Well, I retired and found that I wanted more money because I liked ballroom dancing and I played in a trio. We needed to buy our music. So I started tutoring math, and I tutored for another organization and loved it and decided, when I have 10 students of my own, then I'll quit tutoring for somebody else and do my own thing.
So where do you see the need more? You said that your background is in math, but is it math or reading? Who's coming to you? What kind of help are they needing?
Well, in the last 5 years, what parents say is math. And I love tutoring math and training tutors to tutor math. I had one tutor one year who I wanted to give her a student that required fractions. And she's like, I can't do fractions. I can't do this. I said, you're the tutor geographically closest to the student. I need you to do that. I'll give you worksheets so that you learn ahead of your student. In the first tutoring session, she handled what the student needed. When she went back the next time, the kid said, I got it. You handled it,
Awesome.
and went on from there. So as a tutor, I find from 4th grade up, it's the word problems, the instructions that give kids the biggest challenge. They can learn mechanically, show me an example, and this is how you do it, and then I can mechanically do it, but they don't get the concept. And that's where their literacy, their reading and understanding plays into their math a lot. I ask the kids to tell me what you're thinking and what you're doing as you solve this problem. I'm looking for where the mind, the mouth, and the pencil disagree. Because you can say 6 divided by 2 is 3, you write 2, I know you had the right idea, you said the right idea, but something happened and you didn't connect in the end. And that's how errors happen. And then kids feel like they're stupid and they don't get it when it's just some little internal communication got a little fuzzy.
So compassion, it sounds like, is a really important attribute of a tutor.
It is. And one of the first things that I do is try to find out from a student on any subject at any grade level is, what do you want to do when you grow up? Or what makes you happy in life? Try to find some purpose for why they need to learn to read or why they need that level of math, particularly when you get to junior high, high school math. Kids are going, when am I ever going to use this?
Yes, yes, for sure. I know I had said that a time or two. So what grade level should a parent get concerned if their child is falling behind?
At any time, there is appropriate concern. But what I have found, whether it's reading or math, is that 3rd, 4th grade level, if they're struggling then, it's worth a lot to remedy it as quickly as possible. In later years, it's more a matter, if they're struggling for just a week or two or a month, they may get through it with their teacher or parent or however. But when the struggle's gone on for several months or the grades are plummeting, it's time to remedy quickly, but the quality of the tutor will make a huge difference in how fast and how thorough.
Sometimes parents worry during the summer months that their child's going to forget everything that they learned. So what do you suggest families do at home over break to prevent that brain drain?
Whether it's summer, the holidays, the kid's sick, you're going on vacation, whatever, the number one thing I recommend for anyone is reading out loud. Reading for pleasure, reading for knowledge, for history, for science, for interest, for art. You can read on any subject. And a person should be able to read out loud approximately like they speak. If they're not, there's something they don't understand or don't get, a word they don't understand, a concept that's not clicking. And with math, you kind of think, well, reading out loud over summer or winter holidays or something. But you can go online, and I mean, there are games and kids love the games, but I encourage the reading aspect of math. So there are word problems, like there are 6 kids live in 6 different houses, and you have this series of clues for what color the house is, or who lives there, or how many brothers, whatever. And you have to fill in this grid matrix to figure out who lives in the yellow house. Those are math puzzles, and there are a lot of math puzzle type things that are written in words. And life after school doesn't give you mechanical, 5 + 3 is whatever questions. It gives you story problems, word problems. How am I going to build a little bridge over my stream in my backyard? There's a lot of critical thinking that comes from practicing math things. And with the little ones, one of the fun things that I do with my kids is when you're driving, play alphabet games. Have them read street signs. I'm looking for a street that starts with M, and we're going to turn right. So it's like, well, this one is blah, blah, whatever. So you can start kids at 3 and 4 years old learning and loving, helping you by their reading.
That's a great tip. I love that. Let's talk about older kids for a second, whether it's an exam next week, prepping for the ACT or SAT, even taking an exam for a job or college placement. Is it worth hiring a tutor just to cram for that exam?
I would never support cramming, and I don't know about you, but in college, I know so many kids who crammed for exams, stayed up all night studying, whatever. My perspective is they're missing the concept. And it's like you can cram all that stuff in and regurgitate it on an exam, but then can you remember it in 2 weeks, or can you use it in life? So there are companies that do specific test prep. I'm not aware of any that help with job placement type of test prep, but I've helped many students with that, where, say, they want to be an electrician or go into the police academy and they need to take a test that has math questions on it. Then it's worth having a tutor brush up your skills. I've helped people going to college midlife, and it's like they've forgotten all their math. Right?
All the basics.
So we review those and bring them up to conceptually understanding them so they can use it for the rest of their life.
Okay, let's talk about the different types of services, tutoring services. So there's the in-home sessions, there's group sessions, online instruction. What considerations should parents have when evaluating these options?
I'll give you my opinion first. If they can do in-person, face-to-face, that's the best, because the communication is more complete. The first tutoring session, I recommend being in a public place. So there are other people around, good lighting, so that you meet and understand and know the tutor. In general, I believe that the student makes the best result when it's just 1 or 2 students with the one tutor that are on the same topic and working together. Larger groups, it's a challenge. Many companies have 4 or 5 students sitting with one tutor, and the tutor spends a little bit of time with each of them. And if you're paying by the hour, that's an expensive way. Your kid may be the one left out in that hour. one-on-one, the attention is more focused. Online, it's a necessity now, and I do tutor online, kids in foreign countries, kids further away from me, but it lacks that in-person connection. It gets results, and it's better than nothing when they're struggling and need the help. But there are pros and cons in any, and some people limit by price. And it's like, well, I can go to this program where I just drop in every week, or even a specific time every week, and my kid gets whatever they get. As the parent, I don't have the time to do it. But if the parent had the quality of communication and their own anxiety, especially on math, I think the parent could do a lot of it.
Even that new math?
Or the no textbook math. The joy of tutoring a child, separate from homework help, is that there are at least 3 ways to do anything in math. And similarly in reading, there's at least 3 ways. And if one doesn't work with a child, another one can be tried. And the gift that I have in training tutors and parents is that flexibility that they can be calm. And it's like, okay, if this doesn't work, we've got another idea, and another, because a lot of kids need manipulation or diagrams or something to give them the opportunity to see in the physical universe what they're trying to analyze or decide about.
Okay, that makes sense because my daughter's learning measurement in 1st grade and they're measuring by cubes. And I thought, why aren't they using a ruler? But what you're saying now connects the dots for me because they can physically pick that up and actually measure it. So now what qualifications or certifications should you look for?
A tutor or company or program should always have some visible expertise in whatever subject you're looking for help. And the 2 biggies are, of course, reading, which writing is a companion to that, and math. Those are the big ones. So does the tutor have specific expertise? Beyond that, it's good to know the longevity of their experience, but new tutors need to start somewhere too. So there may be somebody who's brand new in the industry that could really do a good job. I find in Connecticut, a lot of parents want to pay barely minimum wage and have a tutor come to their house. And the quality of the tutor is likely to be a high school or college student who really isn't an educator and doesn't have a long record of tutoring or helping others. To me, the biggest difference between a teacher and a tutor is a teacher is teaching, whether it's homeschool or classroom, usually teaching multiple students, and they can't spend time with everybody. A tutor is usually one-on-one or 2 well-matched students, at least in our programs. And the tutor has the time to explain something 3 times over. The parent, after the 3rd time, is like, I can't understand why you don't get it. You're my cute, wonderful child, but the tutor doesn't have that family emotion, so they can just ask this question again. And a tutor does a lot of asking, teaching by asking questions. Well, what would you do with this? Why did you do that? Does this make sense? What does this word mean? I had a high school girl, I think she was in geometry or algebra 2, middle of high school, and we were reviewing fractions. And I asked her a particular word that's very common in fractions, and she had the deer in the headlights look. I've never heard the word. I've never seen the word. I have no clue. So we worked through that. And within a couple of weeks, she's on track in her high school math because that was something she didn't get. And she's been fighting against it all the way through her math classes.
That must have been so satisfying for you as well.
Yes, indeed.
Those are stories like that are why you do what you do.
Absolutely.
What about when you're researching? How important are references? I would imagine they're extremely important.
Yes, and like for a starting tutor, they won't have a lot. They might have a college or high school teacher reference or a friend or family, a few. But somebody who's been in business a while should have references, or in this day and age and remote learning and other things, some of them may be testimonials, success stories. I have hundreds of them from students and from parents. One parent said they moved to this country so that her children could go to college. First two boys, it was hopeless. The one that went through our tutoring program, her success at the end was she had faith because he was no longer a discipline problem at school. He was now getting good grades, and she knew he could get to college.
Sometimes those discipline problems pop up when the child is struggling with the academically.
Absolutely, and that's why third, fourth grade level is so important, because at that level, it's easy to bring the child up to grade level and empower them with tools for learning and understanding what they're running into when they can't learn. There are actual physiological manifestations of what's happening for a child when they can't learn. And at third, fourth grade level, if they're struggling, that's when ditching school or not doing the homework or hanging out with the wrong people starts happening and leads to other problems.
Well, we've talked a little bit about the fact that you've spent decades tutoring and training tutors, and now you want to train and coach parents to be the tutor. Explain this approach.
Well, the parent's kind of the middleman and the responsible person. And the parent may not feel that they're an educator, but the parent has the opportunity to communicate with the child. They have the most invested interest in the child's success, whether it's academic, life, profession, whatever. So I believe from my decades of experience in the work world as well as education, that helping a parent with a communication relationship with their child and fixing anything the parent needs, for example, take math, to help them be able to help their child. One of the workshops I've given sometimes is how to help your child when you don't speak the language or understand the materials. And a lot of that goes to having the child read out loud and find out what part they don't understand, use the glossary, a dictionary, or an online resource to clear that up. And I believe that giving parents the power to help their kids, no matter what atrocities are happening elsewhere education-wise. And in the homeschool environment, there are parents who run into a topic that they don't feel comfortable to teach. There's become a lot of cooperative stuff. It's absolutely awesome what's happened in the homeschool arena in the last 20 or more years. But even then, a parent can run into a challenge that is making them frustrated. And when you're frustrated, it's harder to help somebody. When you're calm, confident, and you know you have a resource in your back pocket or one phone call away, it's a lot easier to stay calm and confident and helpful.
A tutor's job really is more than just helping the child with these skills that are posing difficulty, but also to motivate the child, correct?
Mm-hmm. And it can be motivate towards education at large, or finding how what they're struggling with fits into their life goal. For example, I had a high school girl in trigonometry, which is a very advanced high school math, really struggling. And I asked her, what do you want to do after college? And she said, I want to be a recreation director on a cruise ship. And okay, you're doing high school math. I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to relate this to her career? But I hesitated. I said, okay. And then she said, I've done my research. And the top cruise lines hire from 3 universities. All 3 of those universities require 4 years of high school math, so I have to do it.
Oh.
I was like, okay, now let's make it more personal for you. I said, when you're on the cruise ship, what are you going to do when you're not being the recreation director? And it's like, well, schmooze with the passengers, talk to them, be nice, or hang out in my room, whatever. I said, well, I suggest in college you take a class in astronomy, because every night the stars are out and you have beautiful views of the stars. And if you know what they are and can have social, casual conversations with people about the stars, you're more valuable to the cruise line. And further, take a course in navigation. There are actually courses given to public. I took one when I was in high school. But navigation is trigonometry. And the ship is at sea. You can't see land anywhere. But between the stars and the charts, with trigonometry where you are. You can say, well, in that direction is such and such island, and over there is that. And be an incredible expert that they would absolutely want you as the recreation director on the cruise line.
So you're making learning fun. I know that a lot of games, online games, make learning fun, but you're finding other ways to make learning fun as well.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is the communication with the student. And that's part of why I really encourage, if tutoring is going to happen, that it's in person. And that's why I also want to give more power to the parent, because they have an everyday communication. Mm-hmm. And how can we build that communication so that they have the trust of their child to communicate anything, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, and really keep that trust and connection all of their life.
So let's talk about the interview process when you're researching tutors, because they're not all alike. What important questions should be asked?
I think the parent should do a little bit of looking before they start seeking a tutor, find out what's the child struggling with? How long have they been struggling? Do I have feedback from the teacher? How much have I tried? Am I competent or confident in the subject? And kind of get this ball of wax in front of you so that you kind of know what you want to do, what you want to figure out. But then asking the tutor a lot of questions about why they tutor, how they tutor, their style. What do they do if the child has a certain learning disability or timing, or how frequently should you tutor? My suggestion, if there's a lot of remediation, twice a week is a good idea. If there's only a little bit, once a week, but particularly where there's homework help and remediation, it's better to start the first few weeks at least twice a week so that you catch up a lot with what's happening right now. And mostly it's a lot of use your gut. Who would you hire to be your best friend and help your child and guide them when you're not available?
Should you include your child in the interview process?
Absolutely. And I'm going to put this like the parent might call me on the phone. We have a conversation. We agree to meet to be sure this is a good fit. And at that meeting is where I feel the child absolutely should be there. And my interview is with the child. How are you doing? What's your favorite subject in school? Recess. What's your next favorite lunch? Okay, after that, art. Anyhow, it's like, well, what do you think about math? What do you think about reading? And if they need both, we're going to fix reading first. But I want to talk to the child. And after the child has answered, I'll look at mom sometimes or dad and say, would you agree? Or when we're done, because if I haven't the communication with the child and the relationship, it's usually quite positive. Children have divulged to me how long they've been struggling or how much it hurts that they haven't even told their parents.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So for the parent to see that and go, oh, I knew something was wrong.
Should you make sure the child's teacher is aware that they are using a tutor?
That's very mixed. If you have a good relationship with the teacher already, yes.
Okay.
If you don't, some teachers feel threatened that,
really?
Oh, you think I'm not doing a good job? Well, I can ignore your kid because you're getting a tutor. See how that works. It's like, anyhow, there can be frictions, and I've seen both happen. And that makes me think of another challenge. Often a child who's struggling in reading is pulled out for special help with reading. Unfortunately, so many of those kids that I have met are pulled out during math time.
Oh.
So then trying to fix their reading hurts their math.
Interesting. Okay. What markers for success should you be looking for to know if you're getting the results that you're paying for?
So my encouragement to the parent is pick the one subject they really need tutoring in. Don't say, well, my kid needs help in everything. Mm-hmm. And like I said, if they need help in math, I'm going to check reading and literacy first, because if they need any help there, I want to fix that first. So the parent should look at and ask, if my child is 2 grade levels behind in their reading, how long will it take them to be on grade level? Or what aspects of reading can you help my child improve? Because there's reading for comprehension, there's reading fluency, that right now, for decades, kids know they have a number, like I'm a 107, she's a 95. That's how many words can they read that sound correct in 1 minute. Has nothing to do with comprehension. But the kids early on think that's how reading is evaluated.
Wow.
And that makes a huge detrimental effect on their willingness to read for comprehension. So we turn that around. So your understanding and your ability to talk about it after you read it is important.
It's got to be important too to make sure that you know their availability, especially if you have a big test that you want to prep for. You might need more frequent sessions. Is that all something that should be in a contract and discussed ahead of time?
Definitely. And my perspective on that personally is that I like the parent to pay for a block of 10 hours. And however we schedule it according to what's needed, we schedule it, they're on my calendar when they prepay for the 10 hours. If they want to do it hour by hour, it's a little higher price. And they have to work with fitting in with everything else that comes onto the calendar.
And then if you don't feel like the child is hitting those markers, is that something that then when the hours are over, you tell the tutor, okay, we're going to look elsewhere, we're done, and you kind of separate at that point?
Hopefully, if the parent feels they're not getting the mark, they will look for a better answer.
Yeah.
And to me, if I feel the child is not making the progress that I promised, we can't guarantee like 12 to 15 hours of tutoring. On average, kids gain a full grade level of reading comprehension improvement. If I see that it's not going that fast, as soon as I see it, I'm going to let the parent know that we're having a little more trouble than I expected. I'm working with one child now who's not getting the silent E, which is her biggest barrier in learning. She's an English language learner. When we get through that, it'll be smooth sailing. On the other hand, I had a student that I estimated 20 hours to get her from 1st to 4th grade level. But because the parent did reading out loud at the level I was tutoring, I sent books and worksheets home, the child made it to 4th grade level in 11 hours. So there's a symbiotic cooperation. If there is homework from the tutor, can the child do it and succeed? And the parent in that case was already reading out loud with her 2 children. And so I had her separate the 2 kids and read vocabulary controlled things and a few supplemental things for her daughter that was so far behind, and it really worked.
That's a great success story, and it's a great way to wrap up because we're running out of time. But first, I want to mention you are BBB accredited. Tell me what you hope that BBB seal says to your clients.
Well, I've always known that BBB was over there, and I thought it was for big corporations. Never really thought about it for me. But trust is so missing in the last few years with everything that's happened politically, economically, the lockdown, et cetera. So trust is the biggest thing that BBB stands for. And the students, tutors, parents that I've worked with trust me. But I can't easily convey that to everybody because most of that trust was built in California. I've been in Connecticut for a few years now, but trust is a big challenge since the affairs of recent years. So,
well, we tell people to look for the BBB seal because it is a sign of a better business. And we thank you for joining us today and for joining BBB.
Thank you. And I'm happy to be part of BBB and happy to be serving in Connecticut and in the online world everywhere.
That's wonderful.
I have students in Mexico and China right now.
Wow. Well, I've enjoyed our conversation. So thank you again for being with us. And we thank you as well. Remember, if you are looking for a tutor in your area, you can go to bbb.org and read those reviews. And we'll see you next time.